January 14, 2026. Chinese state media confirms what Western intelligence has been tracking for months. The Type 096 Tang-class ballistic missile submarine is real, operational, and fundamentally different from anything China has built before. The acoustic signature sits between 95 and 100 decibels. That is a 20 decibel improvement over the Type 094 Jin class, which clocked in at 120 decibels. In submarine warfare, every 3 decibels represents a doubling of acoustic energy. A 20 decibel reduction is not incremental progress. It is a generational leap. The JL-3 missiles it carries have a range exceeding 14,000 kilometers. That means a Type 096 operating in Chinese coastal waters, protected by layers of defensive assets, can strike any target in the continental United States. No blue water patrol required, no vulnerability window crossing the Pacific. Between 2021 and 2025, China launched 10 nuclear submarines with a combined displacement of 79,000 tons. During that same period, the United States launched fewer hulls with less total displacement. The Pentagon's assessment is unambiguous. This is the greatest underwater threat the United States has faced in decades. But this is not just a story about one submarine. The real story is how China erased a 68-year technology gap in silence, at scale, and without the West understanding the depth of what was happening until it was already done. For over half a century, nuclear submarine development followed a predictable Western model. The United States and Soviet Union built their fleets through decades of iterative engineering, catastrophic failures, and incremental acoustic refinement. France and the United Kingdom followed similar timelines. The assumption was clear. You could not shortcut physics. You could not compress 50 years of trial and error into a single generation. China seemed to confirm that assumption for most of its submarine history. July 1958. Mao Zedong authorizes the 09 project, China's foundational vision for a nuclear submarine force. The goal was strategic parity with the superpowers. The reality was decades of struggle. The late 1970s brought the Type 091 Han class, China's first domestically built nuclear attack submarine. It was loud, mechanically unreliable, and operationally limited. Acoustic signatures were so high that Western sonar could track them across entire ocean basins. The early 2000s introduced the Type 094 Jin class, China's first credible attempt at a sea-based nuclear deterrent. But credible is a relative term. At 120 decibels, the Jin class was still louder than Soviet submarines from the 1980s. It required blue water patrols to bring the continental United States within missile range, exposing it to American attack submarines that could track it with ease. Then came the mid-2000s Type 093 Shine class. This was different, a substantial qualitative leap. Quieter, capable. It introduced genuine anti-ship and anti-submarine capabilities that Western navies had to take seriously. 68 years separated Mao's authorization from the Type 096 reveal. This was not rapid development. It was patient, systematic, relentless progression. And somewhere in that progression, China stopped playing catch-up and started building something the United States was not prepared for. But here's the part that changes the strategic calculus. China is not building prototype submarines. It is building a fleet. Since 2022, 9 Type 093B Shang 3 hulls have been launched at Bohai Shipbuilding Heavy Industry Company in Huludao. Not over a decade. Not as experimental platforms. 9 hulls in under 3 years. That is a production tempo of approximately 2 boats per year. Commercial satellite imagery confirms it. The construction halls show a rhythm that Western analysts had not seen in Chinese submarine production before. Between 2021 and 2025, China launched nuclear submarines with a combined displacement of 79,000 tons. During that exact same period, the United States launched fewer submarines with less total tonnage. This is not a comparison between experimental programs. This is serial production of operational platforms with battle-ready capabilities going head-to-head with the world's most experienced submarine builder. And China is outpacing it. The Type 093B is not the Type 096, but it shares the same production infrastructure, the same supply chains, the same workforce training pipelines. What you are seeing at Huludao is not a shipyard learning how to build submarines. It is a shipyard that has already learned, optimized the process, and scaled it to industrial output. Projections based on current construction rates suggest China will field between 8 and 10 operational ballistic missile submarines by the early 2030s. That is not a distant future capability. That is within the service life of submarines currently under construction in both the United States and China. This is not a technology demonstration. This is not a prestige project. This is a strategic buildup operating at a pace the United States has not matched since the Cold War, and the production surge is only part of the equation, because building submarines quickly means nothing if they are loud enough to be tracked the moment they leave port. But if you think the construction tempo is staggering, you have not seen what China did to the noise signature yet. Title card: the stealth revolution. But here's the trick. The Type 096 operates at an acoustic signature between 95 and 100 decibels. The Type 094, the boat it replaces, radiated 120 decibels. That is not an incremental improvement. That is a 20 decibel reduction. And in underwater acoustics, that is exponential. For decades, noise was the Achilles heel of Chinese submarine design. Soviet-era hulls rattled. Propellers cavitated. Machinery transmitted vibrations straight through the pressure hull. American sonar arrays could track Chinese boomers from hundreds of miles away. Deterrence only works if the enemy cannot find you before you fire. China knew this, and China fixed it. The Type 096 uses a horizontal vibration isolation raft design. Primary machinery, the reactor, turbines, pumps, does not touch the hull structure directly. Instead, every major component sits on elastomeric mounts that absorb vibration before it reaches the outer skin. The transmission pathway is severed at the source. Russian naval architects from the Rubin Design Bureau provided consultation during the design phase. This was not theft. This was expertise transfer. Chinese engineers took that foundation and refined it with domestic manufacturing precision that Soviet yards never achieved. Here is what that 20 decibel reduction actually means. Every 10 decibel drop cuts detection range by approximately 50%. The Type 096 is 75% harder to find than the Type 094. And here is the part that makes Western naval planners stop and recalculate. Ohio-class submarines, the gold standard of American sea-based deterrence, operate around 95 decibels. China achieved acoustic parity with America's most capable platform. That is not catching up. That is matching. But stealth is meaningless without reach. And that is exactly where the missile equation changes everything. Title card: 14,000 kilometers. Now here's the part that redefines the geography of deterrence. The Type 096 carries the JL-3 submarine-launched ballistic missile. Range: 14,000 kilometers. With multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles. That means a single Type 096 sitting in the South China Sea can strike any target in the continental United States. From the Bohai Gulf, it can hit Washington, Los Angeles, Chicago, and Houston simultaneously. The JL-2 missile carried by the Type 094 maxed out at 7,200 kilometers. Useful, limited. To threaten the American heartland, Type 094s had to push past the first island chain into the Philippine Sea, sometimes beyond. Exposed, detectable, vulnerable. The JL-3 eliminates that requirement entirely. The Type 096 never has to leave Chinese coastal waters to fulfill its strategic mission. And those coastal waters are not open ocean. They are defended. Chinese air defense systems blanket the coastline. Surface action groups patrol in layered formations. Land-based anti-ship missiles cover approach vectors. Submarines operate under an umbrella of overlapping coverage that American attack subs must penetrate to reach their targets. The Type 096 does not hunt in the deep Pacific. It hides in a fortress. Compare that to the Ohio class. To achieve comparable coverage of Chinese strategic targets, an Ohio must deploy to the mid-Pacific or beyond. It transits thousands of miles from home port. It operates in contested waters where Chinese surveillance networks are expanding. It is exposed for weeks at a time. The Type 096 patrols 200 kilometers from Hainan Island and holds the entire American nuclear triad at risk. According to the U.S. Office of Naval Intelligence 2023 assessment, this shift represents a fundamental change in the operational calculus of sea-based deterrence. The defender now operates from sanctuary. The attacker must come to them. That inversion is not tactical. It is strategic, and it is permanent. This is not about having more missiles. It is about never needing to leave home to use them. But if you think the missile range is the end game, you have not looked at the hull itself yet. Title card, dimensional parity achieved. By 2024, the first Type 096 hulls measured between 15,000 and 20,000 tons submerged displacement. The Ohio class displaces 18,750 tons. Same weight class, same strategic footprint, same operational endurance. China is not building a smaller, cheaper version of American capability. It is building the same boat. And it is not just matching the Ohio, it is anticipating the Columbia. The Columbia class, America's next-generation ballistic missile submarine, is projected to displace approximately 21,000 tons when the first boat enters service in 2031. The Type 096 is already approaching that threshold. China is building to the future American standard while America is still transitioning between platforms. Physical size is not vanity. Displacement indicates missile tube count, reactor power, onboard systems, crew endurance, and mission flexibility. A 15,000-ton submarine cannot carry the same payload as a 20,000-ton submarine. The Type 096 carries 24 JL-3 missiles. The Ohio class carries 20 Trident 2D5 missiles after arms reduction treaties reduced the original 24 tubes. The Type 096 has more launch capacity than the platform it is designed to counter. The Columbia class will carry 16 tubes, fewer missiles, higher individual yield, different doctrine. But the Type 096 already exceeds that tube count by 50%. Reactor design is similarly matched. The Type 096 uses a pressurized water reactor with an estimated thermal output between 190 and 220 megawatts. The Ohio-class S-8G reactor produces 220 megawatts. The Columbia-class will use a life-of-ship reactor with no mid-life refueling. Chinese naval reactor development has not reached that milestone yet, but the operational power output is equivalent. The Type 096 can sustain the same patrol speeds, the same time on station, the same acoustic signature under load. This is not aspirational engineering. This is operational equivalence. Here's where it gets staggering. The first Columbia-class boat, USS District of Columbia, is projected for delivery in 2031. The Type 096 is already at sea. China achieved parity with America's current generation and fielded a competitor to America's next generation before that next generation exists. But here's the trick. While American SSBNs have always relied on the vastness of the open ocean for survival, China rewrote the playbook entirely. The Type 096 does not hunt for hiding spots in the Atlantic or Pacific Deep. It operates inside fortified bastions, defended coastal zones where every approach vector is monitored, mined, and lethal. The United States built its sea-based deterrent on a simple principle: send ballistic missile submarines into the world's oceans, use stealth and distance for protection, and maintain the ability to strike from anywhere. Soviet-era boats tried the same strategy. They failed because they were too loud, too easy to track. American attack submarines shadowed them relentlessly. But China is not repeating that mistake. Instead, Chinese naval strategists developed what Western analysts now call the Bastion model. The South China Sea and Bohai Gulf become strategic sanctuaries. Type 096 boats patrol waters, ringed by integrated air defense systems, surface action groups, diesel-electric attack submarines, and subsurface sensor networks. Any American Los Angeles, Virginia, or Seawolf-class attack submarine attempting to penetrate these zones must navigate minefields, evade anti-submarine aircraft, avoid patrol craft equipped with active sonar, and operate within range of land-based anti-ship missiles. Every entry corridor is a kill zone. And here is the part that makes strategists stop and think. The JL-3 missile has a range of 14,000 kilometers. That means a Type 096 sitting in the Bohai Gulf, barely 200 kilometers from Beijing, can strike targets across the entire continental United States. It never needs to leave protected waters. It never needs to transit choke points. It never needs to expose itself to the open ocean where American attack boats have historically dominated. The submarine stays inside the fortress. The fortress moves with the submarine. According to the Pentagon's 2023 China Military Power Report, this strategy fundamentally alters the detection calculus. Traditional anti-submarine warfare assumes you can track a boat across thousands of miles of open ocean. But if the boat never leaves a defended perimeter, if it operates under an umbrella of overlapping defenses, if approaching it means running a gauntlet designed specifically to kill hunter-killers, then stealth is no longer the only variable. Geography becomes weaponized. And that is not just an advantage. That is a paradigm shift. But if you think operational doctrine is the whole story, you have not seen the real crisis yet. When you step back and look at everything China has built, the picture becomes unavoidable. A submarine as quiet as America's best. A missile with intercontinental range. A production tempo that delivers 2 boats per year. And a defensive strategy that turns coastal waters into impenetrable fortresses. This is not incremental progress. This is strategic parity achieved in silence, while the world was looking elsewhere. The United States Navy built its entire anti-submarine warfare doctrine on acoustic detection. Passive sonar arrays listen for engine noise, cavitation, mechanical vibrations. Active sonar pings reveal a target's position but also expose the hunter. In open ocean, against a noisy adversary, this worked for decades. But the Type 096 operates at 95 to 100 decibels in many conditions. That is ambient ocean noise. Passive sonar becomes useless, and active sonar, inside a Chinese bastion, is a suicide signal. Anti-submarine aircraft, surface ships, and coastal defenses converge on the source within minutes. Satellite surveillance offers no solution. The submarine is submerged. No thermal signature. No electromagnetic emissions. No visual profile. It is invisible from above and nearly silent below. According to multiple Pentagon assessments, the United States now faces a problem it has never confronted: a credible, sea-based nuclear deterrent that it cannot reliably track, cannot preemptively target, and cannot neutralize without unacceptable losses. The assumption that American attack submarines could hunt and destroy enemy boomers before they launch no longer holds. The Type 096 does not need to hide in the deep ocean. It hides in plain sight, inside a fortress. The detection advantage is gone. Since the Cold War ended, the United States Navy has maintained uncontested dominance beneath the waves. Soviet submarines were loud. Russian successors remained trackable. America's acoustic advantage was the foundation of its strategic nuclear posture. That foundation just cracked. The Type 096 eliminates the noise gap that American war planners relied on for over 50 years. China now possesses a genuinely survivable second strike capability. Mutual assured destruction is no longer theoretical, it is operational. And in any Taiwan scenario, the Pentagon cannot guarantee it could destroy China's nuclear deterrent before or during a conflict. Every assumption about Pacific force posture, every defense investment priority, every strategic calculus now requires urgent reassessment.